another one.
All right, so if you want to level up your career in tech, check out the Patreon, see what's in there. So much content, and depending on the tier that you are, you get one-on-one coaching calls with yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph. But even at the $10 tier, even at the lowest tier, right? So much content. So check it out. I have me updating my resume in there, and you can follow along. You can. I'm gonna make that resume of. I think I actually do have it available where you can click the link, make a copy of it, update it for yourself. Right? It's a massive resume. It's a massive resume, right? But it's for you, right? It's for you. Okay. So, and of course, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, all that good stuff, right? So let's move on. All right. This topic is how much and for what purposes do you use AWS while testing? All right. It says, I'm on a project that requires me to work with AWS services for integrating automated testing into CI/CD pipeline using S3 buckets, Lambda functions, etc. So I'm curious, how often do you work with AWS or other cloud services as QAs or SDETs, and for what? All right. Oh my God. I love this question. To give this one 25 minutes. So I use AWS. Well, when I say I use AWS, my company uses AWS for their whole testing. Oh, they use AWS for everything, right? But as regards to testing, right? We use AWS for just about everything. So we have our CI/CD software running on AWS. We have our Selenium grid running on AWS. So the grid nodes would be on like an EC2 instance, like, common. And then we would have a hub on AWS where the nodes would connect to. If you're not familiar with Selenium grid, you have a hub where all of the different computers or servers would connect to it. And now when you say to execute your tests, it's going to distribute it based on the availability of the different nodes, different computers, right? So each node, each server, each computer that's going to be able to execute the tests, that would be a Amazon EC2 instance, right? Then we have our whole CI/CD software that is also on like AWS. And then we have our the actual agents that would be receiving like the builds and everything like that do the work, right? That after the developers do their thing, they push up their changes and all that good stuff. Then we have the actual build agents, right? Those are going to do their work. So that's also part. That part is not specifically part of QA, but it's part of the DevOps, the CI/CD pipeline, which QA does fall within the CI/CD pipeline. However, other things that I do with it, right? So I use the AWS ECR for one of our tests that we need to do. We are it uses a Docker image, right? So and that's a project that I worked on just maybe 2 months ago, where instead of having the image be built every single time we run the test, we we only build the image when there's a change to a particular file, to the Docker file, that is, right? And when that file is changed, then we'll rebuild the image and then we'll push it up to the ECR. But when that image is not when the Docker file is not changed, it just pulls the image down, allows us to run our tests even faster, right? So what else would I use? We use AWS for, right? So we have certain tests that we run. We would stage the data for the test in on S3, right? So we'll go to the S3 and say, all right, run the test using this test data here, and it'll go from there, right? Let's see, what other services do we use? So mentioning Lambdas, we don't use the Lambda for our testing pipeline, but we use Lambdas in our software, right? So in the software that we build, there's Lambdas. So we had to, or I had to actually test the Lambdas out to make sure that they were doing what they're supposed to do. They were working at the correct speed, all that good stuff, right? What other AWS do I use for QA? for QA, what other AWS? So I would say as I'm diving into the realm of DevOps and stuff like that, I I'm not familiar with how they test for that, right? And if there is QA for DevOps, right, then I'm pretty sure that going to get into a lot more testing protocols and how to and using like whatever cloud platform. Since we're talking about AWS in this instance, but I've dabbled with Google Cloud Platform as well. Azure, not so much, but that's on the list, right? What what other services? Because outside of like for like because I'm answering for QA in particular, right? Because for instance, I've set up Docker on AWS. I have a video for that, right? Set up Docker on AWS, and then I got one actually, right? So for reporting for QA, like so when you make reports on the bugs and stuff like that, or the test runs, all that, right? I've set up report portal on an EC2 instance, right? So I have a video for that too, but I installed Docker on an AWS EC2 instance, and then I used Docker to install report portal on that instance, and then I can I can send the results of the automated tests to that, right? For doing my like when I'm helping people entering the QA field to build some type of QA portfolio, I had them go on AWS. Well, actually, I had them do it locally, right? But you can do it on AWS where you can actually showcase your portfolio. Where they installed an open source test case management system called Kiwi, and they created some test cases in there, did some test executions, reported some defects, right? So I like that would be an instance that you could use AWS if you wanted to install a test case, an open source test case management system, right? But even if you're not doing it to track your test cases, you can use that to build your portfolio, where you can showcase that you do have some understanding of how the AWS platform works, and you know how a test case management system works, and that you've installed one as well. So many options. Oh, I've used the security groups as well. I've used some other, like I said, I use a lot of their features, but not all of them are related to QA. So I'm gonna keep it related to QA. All right. So hopefully that helps anyone out there knowing how you could use the cloud platforms to facilitate your testing needs. All right.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos. Enigmatic Joker.